Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Tendon Talk. I am so excited that you're here, and today's topic is going to be one that I know will really hit close to home for a lot of you. It definitely does for me. I've been here before. If you don't know me, my name's Dr. McKenzy, and I was bedridden for about 8 months, almost a full year, and spent about 2 years in recovery trying to regain my life back after long COVID, which also triggered an autoimmune disease and all of these problems that left me thinking that my life was over. But obviously, I got better. And that's why I'm here helping you guys figure out what you can do to help your body from burnout and from a lot of the chronic illnesses that can be associated with things like chronic fatigue and POTS and burnout and anxiety. So, if you've ever felt super exhausted after you went to a social event or after you were socializing with someone, and this is even if you enjoyed it, right? Even if it's fun, even if it's meaningful, even if it's something that you wanted to go to, and you just felt completely wiped out. You're not imagining it. There is definitely a reason for this. You're not too sensitive, and I promise you're not the only one. When I was at my lowest point and I was bedridden, I couldn't even have a conversation. I remember one of my friends calling in to check on me, and we talked for maybe 10 minutes, and I crashed the rest of the day. And my blood sugar was all over the place. My electrolytes were imbalanced. I was just barely able to sit up and drink water just from a conversation, even though I was excited and happy to talk to her. So if any of this sounds like you, if you are burnt out, if you are overwhelmed, if you feel like you're running on fumes, I want you to know that this space was created with you in mind. So I do want to pause here before we dive into all of the information and have you guys answer a question in the live chat for me. And let me know, do you often feel completely drained after social events? I know some of you might feel a little bit exhausted. Let me know if you ever feel super drained, like can't get out of bed for a day, 3 days, feeling like you've got the flu. All right, and let me also ask you this. So when you do leave one of these social events, whether it's dinner with friends or you went to a birthday party or even just a phone call or a group chat that you were participating in, did you ever feel like you needed a full day to recover? I know when I was at my lowest point, I obviously was unable to go out to things like this, but once I did start recovering, I remember the first time I went out to a dinner for someone's birthday at my family's house. And I was only there for, I think, like an hour and a half. And I was seated the whole time. I wasn't walking around much. And I crashed for a week straight. I could barely get out of bed. And once I did finally start getting out of bed again, I was pretty much stuck on the couch for almost another week after that. So I felt at the time like, oh, well, I'm antisocial. I'm being dramatic. You know, I'm overreacting to something. But I want to, let you guys know, if you do go through this, you're not alone. You're not antisocial. You're not the only person that feels this way. And there's a big, big reason for all of this. So what is actually going on when your body feels like socializing is just too much? So I call this Nervous System 101, and I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. Feel free to drop any Q&A or any questions in the chat, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. So this is meant to be simple for you guys. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I want it to make sense, and I don't want to overwhelm you. So your nervous system has two main gears that it is shifting between all throughout your day. So one is going to be your sympathetic, which you've probably heard of as the fight or flight mode. And this is the part of you that essentially kicks into gear when something feels stressful, when something feels unsafe, or if it's just a little bit too much, too overwhelming, right? And then what happens? Your heart rate goes up, your muscles tense, your body is flooded with stress hormones. And It's like this internal alarm system is saying, hey, heads up, we need to react now. Whether it's freeze up, whether we run, whether we fight, we need to act, and we need to act fast. And then you have the other gear, and that is your parasympathetic system. So this one is more like the rest and digest mode, right? I call it the rest, digest, and heal mode. And this is where your body starts to settle down, it starts to feel safe, it repairs cells and tissues, and it conserves energy. This is where your heart rate starts to slow down. It calms your breathing down, and it helps you feel grounded and present. And in a very balanced system, your body naturally shifts between the two of these all day long, right? Neither of them are bad. You need both of these. You need both of them to survive. So you might get a little stressed from something. Maybe you got a phone call or an email at work. Then your system should calm back down, right? You exert a little bit of energy, then you shift into that parasympathetic, and your body rests and it recovers. Your stress hormones go back down to a normal level, and the inflammation levels come back down to a normal level, and you feel better. But the thing is, if your nervous system is already super sensitive or really dysregulated, which is very common with chronic stress, chronic illness, anxiety, burnout, things like POTS or MCAS, your body might be getting stuck in that fight or flight mode, even during something as normal as a 5-minute conversation. So when you find yourself in these social situations, even ones that feel fine on the surface, they feel good, your body might still respond like it's under that pressure over here. Your heart's going to beat faster, your muscles are going to get tense, you might feel really buzzy, like your whole body's vibrating, you might feel really wired on the adrenaline. And it's not something that you're actively choosing, which can be pretty frustrating, right? Because everyone on the outside thinks that you're just choosing it, or that you're just naturally an anxious person or something, or very uptight. But you don't choose this, right? It's your nervous system doing what it thinks it needs to do automatically in order to keep you safe. So this is why something like, a Zoom call or a family dinner or a birthday party or even just small talk can leave you feeling exhausted and completely wiped out, because your nervous system was working overtime the entire time that you were present, whether it was physically present or just on a voice call, right? You're trying to manage and assess everything that's going on around you while your nervous system is. And if you've been living in that wired and that tired state, especially for a long time, your body doesn't recover as easily. It has a harder time shifting into this parasympathetic, and when it does, it's usually a lot slower to recover. And that's when we start to see this socializing leading to absolute exhaustion. And you might notice yourself isolating a lot more, or declining a lot of invitations, or, just staying home or staying alone a lot more often. But the good thing is that once you understand what's happening, you can start to work with your body instead of feeling like you're constantly fighting against it. And we're going to keep building on this topic as we go today. So, what happens when the nervous system isn't shifting smoothly between those two gears that we just talked about, between the alerted state and the calm state? So, that is what we call nervous system dysregulation. And this basically means that your system is getting stuck. So, it's stuck in this on position. There's no dimmer switch. It's either on or it's off. So, when it's stuck in that on position, which is your stress response, it gets jammed. And you can't turn it off, right? So instead of bouncing back after something stressful, your body just stays revved up. So little things like getting a frustrating text or running a few minutes late or feeling overstimulated at a party can trigger a huge stress reaction. And instead of recovering really quickly from that, it can take hours or even days or weeks if you're very chronically ill for your body to come back down. So when you stay in that on state for too long, it wears you out and it leads to things like chronic anxiety, tension, brain fog, trouble sleeping, and that really heavy fatigue that you cannot seem to shake. So on the flip side, some people don't quite stay in that high alert mode, right? They actually drop into a different kind of dysregulation. One that looks more like a shutdown, which is what I went through, right? That's where a lot of our chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia people live, is that chronic shutdown. And that's where your nervous system is trying to protect you, but instead of ramping everything up, it slams on the brakes way too hard. And you feel disconnected, you have a lot of brain fog, you're numb, you're totally drained after socializing. It's like being in that freeze state, and your body's trying to conserve all of the energy that it can. So one condition which I have is POTS, right? So this is a really good example of a dysregulated nervous system. So with POTS, your body has trouble regulating things like heart rate. It has trouble regulating temperature, blood pressure. So something as simple as standing up or having a conversation in a warm room can cause you to be dizzy, right? It can cause you to have a racing heart, have intense fatigue, like your legs are going to give out. And social situations can feel overwhelming, right? Before you even realize what's happening. And if you've ever lived with chronic anxiety or trauma or burnout, your system might stay stuck in that survival mode more often than not, even in what feels like a completely normal social situation. And that's, again, because your brain is trying to scan for safety 24/7, right? And all of that internal work that your body is doing just to be in the room with other people adds up, and it adds up really quickly. And this is why so many of the women that I work with feel completely zapped, right? Even if it's just from a day of work, or maybe they went out to a 2-hour dinner. Your nervous system is doing a full workout behind the scenes. You just can't see it. Other people can't see it, but it is working really hard to keep you safe. So let's tie this together real quick. So why does socializing feel exhausting when your nervous system is already dysregulated? Because it's work, right? That's what we just said. It's overworked. So for a sensitive or a dysregulated nervous system, social interaction isn't just chatting, right? It is a full body event. Even if the people are very kind, they're nice, they're understanding, they're patient with you, you love them, they love you. Even if the conversation's good and you're having fun, your brain and your body are still in that high alert mode behind the scenes. And your nervous system is doing a bunch of things at once, right? Like we said, it's scanning the environment for any and all potential threats. That means it's also reading facial expressions. It's trying to read tone, read body language. It's managing your own reactions so that you seem okay, right? How many times have you had to put on a face? I'm fine, I'm good. No, I'm fine, really. You're holding in those emotions that might not feel socially appropriate. You're trying to track the conversation while masking that fatigue or masking a symptom that pops up or any discomfort. And guess what? That uses a lot of energy, a lot more than the extrovert that might be sitting next to you is using, just comfortably being themselves and expressing whatever they think and whatever they feel in the moment, right? And the kicker is that most of this is happening unconsciously. It's not something that you're choosing to do. You're not choosing to be tense. You're not choosing to be on guard. Your nervous system is stuck in that state, right? So while someone with a regulated nervous system can just go to brunch and enjoy the conversation, and then they head home and they're feeling fine, someone with a dysregulated nervous system will feel drained. You're going to feel exhausted. Maybe you have chronic pain, or you have hives, or you start having more food sensitivities for a few days or a few weeks afterwards. Even though you did the same thing. You went to the same dinner, maybe you even ate the same food. So what was different, right? I often describe this to my clients as getting a car stuck in high gear. So even when you're just cruising along, it's burning so much fuel, so much more than it would be, so much more than it should be, right? So of course you're going to feel depleted by the time that you get home. And that's why even the pleasant social events, I'm sorry guys, leave you feeling like you need a nap, or like you need a really hot bath, or maybe a little bit of yoga or something to really wind down. Your nervous system's working to help you keep it all together in that moment, right? And that takes a toll. So let's talk about one of the key players in all of this, and that's your vagus nerve, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about. If you've watched anything on my channel, we talk about that and nervous system dysregulation a lot. So this nerve is kind of like the captain of your parasympathetic nervous system, right? It's the part that helps you feel safe, that helps you feel grounded, that helps you be connected. So it's like a calm down switch for your nervous system and your body. And it runs all the way from your brainstem through your face, your throat, your heart, your diaphragm, your gut, basically acting like this communication highway between your brain and the rest of the body. And it matters so much because when that vagus nerve is strong and healthy and working well, that's high vagal tone. And that means that you can shift into a calm, social, connected state very easily, right? You're able to recover from stress faster. You stay present in conversations. You're clearly thinking. You genuinely feel relaxed around people. But when that vagal tone is really low, which is super common with people who have chronic illnesses, chronic stress, anxiety, trauma, burnout, your body is struggling to access that safe social mode. So it's like that signal to relax isn't quite making it through that vagus nerve into the brain or through that vagus nerve into the rest of the body. So instead of feeling grounded, your nervous system might stay in that fight or flight mode, right, that we talked about earlier. It might also crash into the shutdown mode. So if your mind knows that you're safe and your body's not getting the message, that can make socializing feel even more intense, right? Or even threatening to a point. Maybe not consciously threatening, but subconsciously threatening to your body. And again, it's not something that you're doing wrong because you're not consciously doing this, right? Your nervous system is trying to protect you. So when that vagal tone is low, people often tend to withdraw. They feel irritable, right? They feel very on edge during social occasions and conversations, and then they go home and they kind of blame themselves for it later, right? Why couldn't I just open up? Or why didn't I say this? Or why did I say that? Or man, I should have asked them this question. Or man, I shouldn't have made that face when so-and-so said such and such, right? But your nervous system was in that hyper-aware state, and it was constantly trying to track the room and track all of the people and all of the things to keep you safe enough. But the good news is that you don't have to stay stuck like this, right? This is where I was, and I didn't stay stuck. So vagal tone can be improved. And we're going to get into some gentle ways to support that in the second half of today's session. But for now, just know that if you are socializing and it doesn't feel easy or it doesn't feel enjoyable, it isn't necessarily a personality flaw. It doesn't mean that you're broken or you're awkward. Your nervous system isn't feeling safe, and we can work with that. Okay, so let's talk about something that a lot of sensitive, burnt out women experience, but often don't have a name for. And this is sensory overwhelm. So this is when your environment, things like noise or light or crowds or maybe even touch, like certain textures, just feel like too much for your system to handle. So think of like a busy restaurant with clinking silverware. There's really loud, obnoxious music. There's people talking or yelling over each other, or a holiday party at work where you're expected to socialize in a room full of noise and activity with all these people that you might not like a lot, right? For someone with a very sensitive nervous system, especially if you're already dealing with the anxiety and the fatigue or even neurodivergence, those environments can feel really intense, right? Even if you're not consciously stressed, your brain is in overdrive trying to take it all in, trying to filter everything and figure out how it needs to respond and how to do so accordingly. And again, those kinds of things burn a lot of energy, right? Your brain's working hard to process all of the sounds, all of the lights, everything that you're seeing, everything you're smelling, everything you're touching, all of the movement around you. So your internal processor is kind of maxed out and overheating at that point. And you eventually hit that wall where it can shut down. And, that's why when you leave, you might have a headache. You might feel real snappy. You might feel really hungry or dehydrated. Or maybe you're overstimulated, like you just need to lay in the dark or take a really, really long nap. And the key part is that if you even get a full night of sleep afterwards, sometimes you can still feel wiped out, right? That's what happened to me a lot on my healing journey, because it's not just this physical tiredness, right? It's your nervous system being depleted. And your brain and body were working overtime to survive this environment that felt really overwhelming. And it's not that you can't handle normal things. It's that your body's trying to process a lot, right? And that comes at a cost. So this urge to escape or to shut down doesn't mean that you're dramatic. It's just your nervous system saying, hey, this is a little too much input. I think I need a break. So if you've ever walked out of one of these things, whether it was, the holiday work party or a dinner or a really crowded space, and as soon as you walked out, you immediately felt relief, that's your nervous system trying to regulate, right? That's how you know there was a lot of sensory overwhelm, right? Understanding this helps you be kinder to yourself when you feel drained after these everyday situations that might seem easy for other people. So let's talk about something else that just zaps energy, right? Something that drains so much more energy than people realize, and this is social masking. So this is what happens when you feel like you need to hold it all together, or when you need to put on a certain face around people, even if you're anxious, if you're tired, if you're overwhelmed, if you don't feel good, you're just exhausted, or you're just not feeling it. Maybe that's smiling even though you're struggling internally, or maybe that's keeping a conversation going even though you'd rather be quiet. Maybe it's copying the social behavior of other people so you don't seem awkward or too different. And a lot of us that tend to be really sensitive women who are usually introverted, or women who feel very misunderstood, we've gotten really good at this, right? Because at some point we learned that it wasn't always safe and it wasn't always acceptable to show how we were really feeling. But that masking takes a toll, right? It's not just emotional, it's physical, because that brain is running constant calculations. Am I acting normal? Am I speaking normal? Did I say the right thing? Do I seem too quiet? Am I talking too much? Am I too intense? And at the same time, your body's holding on to all of this tension, right? Trying to keep that smile in place, right? Plastered all over your face, whether it's real or not. You're keeping your posture open and upright. You're suppressing those natural responses. And again, it uses up a lot of energy. It's like having an app on your phone constantly running in the background. You might not notice it at first, but by the time you get home, your phone's overheating. It's going to start crashing, right? So maybe you sit in silence when you get home. Maybe you cry, maybe you take a hot bath, maybe you collapse onto the bed, maybe you don't even make it to the bedroom and you collapse on the couch or on the floor. You've been holding it together for hours and you need a break. And the thing is, if you're doing this a lot, if masking is like your social setting default, that can contribute to long-term burnout. Because every time that you override your body's needs or your emotional needs just to blend in, it reinforces that performance is safer than being authentic. And that takes a huge toll, right? But you don't have to stop masking overnight, right? Just being aware is a huge first step. And again, later in this session today, we are going to talk about what it looks like to take little masking breaks and to show up more authentically with safe people so that you can connect without exhausting yourself in the process. So let's talk about your social battery. Now, we all have a social battery. You've probably heard of this before. This is like your internal energy reserve that we draw from whenever we're interacting with other people. And just like a phone battery, it drains if we use it, right? So social interaction might seem really passive from the outside, but internally, it is really the full body event, like a lot of these things that we're talking about. So you're listening, you're talking, you're reading these facial expressions, you're managing your own responses, you're trying to stay present. And for so many of us, especially if you're sensitive and anxious, or if you're dealing with that chronic fatigue, it takes extra effort, right? Every interaction pulls a little bit of energy from your system. And my therapist, whom I love so much, described it to me like this. Every conversation is a withdrawal from your energy bank. And if you're not careful to recharge and deposit into that energy bank, you will eventually hit zero, right? And now some people, especially extroverts or folks who have really resilient nervous systems, can gain energy from social time. They leave feeling lit up, energized, motivated, recharged by that connection. But for those of us who are more sensitive, who might be more dysregulated or maybe burnt out, it's the complete opposite, right? The deposits are really small, but the withdrawals are really big. And you walk away feeling overstimulated and wired and sometimes totally wiped out. So that's where that social fatigue kicks in. And that's the point where your battery is completely empty. You're irritable, you're overstimulated, you're emotionally flat. Maybe you're even shutting down. Maybe you need to be alone. Maybe you retreat. And that's normal, right? And for those that are living with a chronic illness, like chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia or POTS, your baseline energy is already limited. So something like a 2-hour dinner party can use up all of that energy that someone else might spend across their entire day, right? So people with POTS, for example, might experience a spike in adrenaline and their heart rate might go up just from standing and talking in a warm room. We talked about that. That means your body is running a marathon in the background. It's a lot of energy while you're just trying to make small talk, right? So it's no surprise that you feel like collapsing afterwards. And that's why you might also experience like post-exertional malaise, that crash, that deep fatigue or deep pain that you have that shows up even a day or two after the event, right? And that's with my healing journey. The further I got along, the later and later the crashes would happen sometimes. So some of my crashes would be delayed, like I said, for 2 or 3 days. And it seems weird and like it doesn't make sense, but that post-exertional malaise works that way, right? Sometimes it's delayed. So if you ever wonder, well, why does this wear me out more than anyone else? This is why, right? Your body's not broken. You're not antisocial. You have a smaller battery to work with right now. That can be expanded. But honoring that part of caring for yourself is so important. So, planning ahead, protecting that recovery time, giving yourself permission to rest afterwards, all of that's important. All of that is honoring yourself, honoring your healing journey, and it's not selfish. It's smart and it is necessary, right? That is nervous system awareness and self-care. So let's talk about another big one. We have anxiety and hypervigilance and how they add to the social exhaustion. So for so many women that I work with, social events aren't just exhausting, they're very tense, right? You're on edge most of the time. And that's not necessarily because of the people, but it's because of what's going on inside their body and inside their mind. So if you've ever felt yourself overthinking everything that you said, or replaying conversations on a loop later that night, or worrying that you seemed off, or that you seemed awkward, or that you said something at the wrong time, this is what happens when your nervous system is stuck in that hypervigilance. It's basically your body's version of walking on eggshells. You're scanning the room, you're watching how people react to you, you're choosing your words carefully, your body language, you're reading their expressions in body language, even their tone, all while trying to appear really calm and really connected. And inside, your nervous system is flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. It's trying to stay ready just in case something goes wrong. And while that might help you to get through that event or through that moment. It can also leave you feeling very wired and very overstimulated during the interaction. And then you crash afterwards. Ow. Sorry. I bumped my desk. Yeah, I mean, you might be feeling foggy. You can feel really irritable and shaky. I would feel really shaky and fatigued, like I was walking through cement. And super emotional towards my later part of my recovery. And you might not even realize how tense you were until you get home and you finally exhale, and then all your muscles start to slowly relax. But what's happening here is your brain's threat detection system, which is called neuroception, is misreading the room. So if you've had trauma, you've had rejection, chronic stress, chronic anxiety, your brain might even perceive even neutral situations as highly unsafe. So say your friend uses a really flat tone, and then your nervous system freaks out and says, oh, she's mad at me. Even if she's not, she's just maybe having a bad day. Or even if everything's fine, she just sounds a little flat. And because of that internal uncertainty, your sympathetic nervous system stays activated. Those stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline stay elevated. And you're in that low-grade fight or flight all the time. And that internal on-guard state uses up a lot of energy, right? You're burning more energy than more people would be just sitting there. So if you've ever walked into a room and you felt your heart race and you felt your throat tighten or your stomach clench, it's not just you being afraid of people or being bad at socializing. It's your nervous system trying to save you, trying to protect you. And once we name that, once we figure out what that really means, we can start shifting from that self-talk of judgment to self-talk of compassion. So instead of saying, well, why am I like this? We can start to say, well, of course my body feels this way, right? My body thinks that it's keeping me safe. And that alone, talking to yourself like that with more compassion and more grace, that alone can, research has shown it can scientifically, it can reduce the stress hormones. It can reduce the levels of tension in your body and help regulate your nervous system. So now that we've talked about socializing and why it's so draining, let's shift into the how to protect your energy, how to show up in ways that feel good for your body. So the first strategy is one of the simplest, but also a huge one, super powerful. So that is plan and pace your social time. You don't have to say yes to everything. That was the first one for me. It was the hardest because I was not a person that usually said no. But you don't have to say yes to everything. You don't have to stay until the end. You definitely don't have to keep pushing through when your body says, hey, I need a break. You know, it's okay to be more intentional with your calendar. And that might mean prioritizing the people or the events that actually fill your cup, right? Maybe that's a quiet cup of coffee with someone that you trust instead of a big loud group that leaves you feeling overstimulated. You can also think of your energy as a budget, right? Just like you wouldn't go spend your whole paycheck in a single day, you don't want to use all of your social spoons in one weekend, all of your social battery in one weekend. So if you've got a work party on Friday, maybe don't also commit to brunch and errands and a family gathering the next day, right? That's a lot. So give yourself some buffer time, right? A day to rest, a day to recover, or at least several hours, right, to relax and recover. And kind of plan space around those social times and those social events, not just during them. And when you're at an event, try to pace yourself, right? It's okay to take mini breaks. Maybe you step outside for some fresh air, or disappear into the bathroom for a bit, or find a quiet room and just do some breathing exercises, or even just call a friend, someone that you trust that might not be there. It's not rude, it's you regulating your nervous system. Right? You're supporting yourself. And if you live with something like chronic fatigue or POTS, it makes pacing even more important, right? Because when we stand for too long, especially in really hot environments or we're overstimulated, it can all add up really fast. So knowing your triggers, planning ahead, all of that's going to benefit you. So sit when you can. Stay near really cool airflow. Dress comfortably. Make sure you're hydrated. Little things go a long way when you stack them together. And one other thing that is very important is communication. So communication helps you to really, it's good to talk to people about what you need, right? Gently share what you need with someone that you trust, with a safe person. Say, like, hey, I might duck out a little early. I'm just really tired today. I need some rest, right? That simple heads up takes a lot of pressure off you. If you tell someone ahead of time, like, hey, I'm not feeling great. I might not stay the whole time. And then you don't have that pressure, that weight over you of, oh man, I gotta stay another hour. Oh man, I have to stay another 2 hours. I don't know if I can do it. You get to honor your limits and you don't have to feel guilty about it either, right? So your energy is valuable. It matters, you matter. And listening to your body isn't flaking, it's a type of self-care. And when you start to plan ahead, you're creating space for that social time to feel more manageable, to feel more supported, and to even feel enjoyable again, right? You get to connect with people more. So this next piece is all about setting yourself up for success before the social time even begins. So how you feel going into a social event can completely change how your body handles it, right? So if you're already running on empty, it's not going to be a surprise if you crash halfway through, whatever dinner you're going to or whatever party you're at. But if you prepare your nervous system and you prepare your body beforehand, you're giving yourself a stronger chance of being resilient through that time, but also be recovering afterwards. So it's like charging your battery before heading out. It's preparation beforehand, right? So let's walk through a few rituals that you can do that can make a big difference. So first, we want to rest, right? Prioritize sleep the night before. So if insomnia is an issue that you have, and I know it often is when we have chronic fatigue and chronic illnesses and anxiety, try a consistent nighttime routine, right? Maybe try a warm bath, some chamomile tea, some Epsom salts, some yin yoga before bed, something to help you wind your system down consistently before bed. And then your body's going to start to recognize that is your routine, and then it's going to start releasing these chemicals that help you fall asleep at the same time every night. And if you don't sleep well, even just a short nap or 5 minutes of quiet meditation throughout your day can help you go in with more capacity, right? Because that's still little moments throughout your day that you're getting recharge. Next, you need to ground yourself. So a quick nervous system reset before you head out the door can change everything. So a few rounds of 4, 7, 8 breaths, or box breathing, or physiological sighs, all of these can help activate that vagus nerve that we talked about and shift your body out of that stress mode and into the calm, rest, digest, and heal. So we also need to hydrate, especially my ladies that have POTS. Hydrate and fuel up. So you want to make sure that you have eaten a very stable meal that has fats, carbs, and proteins, and you want to make sure that you are hydrated with electrolytes and water, because that low blood sugar or electrolyte imbalances and dehydration can mimic anxiety, and then they make everything feel harder. Breathing is harder, walking is harder, moving, talking, thinking, all of it. So eat a balanced snack and make sure you're drinking a lot of water. Lastly, make sure you're going in with a good mindset. So before you go into whatever event it is, be calm, have intentional thoughts before you walk in. Something like, I'm going to listen to my body today. It's okay for me to be myself. If I start feeling a symptom come up, it's okay for me to step aside. And you can also try to journal or to maybe text a really supportive friend that you trust before the event if you're feeling anxious, and just let them give you a pep talk, right? Even if it's just one kind sentence towards yourself, or, just a couple of sentences exchanged between you and your friend that you trust, all of that can reduce a lot of that anticipatory stress, which brings down all of those stress hormones and makes your body relax. And then you have a much better time. And again, your social battery drains slower. It makes everything more manageable, right? Just 5 to 10 minutes of this before you go in. Okay, so this one is all about sensory and environment. So you're not too sensitive if crowds or if loud music or if bright lights start to wear you out. Your system is just processing things a lot more deeply. And again, that's something that we work with, right? When I was at my lowest point, I had to wear earplugs 24/7. I could not hear anything. It sounds over dramatic, but like hearing a water faucet running at the other end of the house or a cabinet door closing or just the house making noises would send these electrical shocks all down my body. And it was the most painful thing I had ever experienced. But I don't deal with that anymore. So my point is, like, if you're dealing with that, it's something you can work with, right? Focusing on regulating your nervous system, figuring out what the root is, all of that you can move forward from. So there are actually a lot of small and subtle things that you can do to your environment, aside from the earplugs, that can help to make you feel less drained when you are out and about or if you're going to these events. So sensory tools are really important. So if you're going somewhere that's really loud, yes, I think it's okay to bring earplugs or some kind of noise canceling earbuds. When I did start going out again for the first couple of months, I did still wear earplugs, and I would just wear them less and less, really. But I mean, most people didn't even notice them, and most people talked loud enough that I could hear through them. So it just wasn't as overstimulating as it would have been without them, right? If bright lights are something that bothers you, consider, blue light filtering glasses or wearing a hat if you're outside, something that's going to soften some visual input. And obviously sunglasses, if you're outside, are going to be very helpful. Some people are cool with wearing sunglasses inside. Some people think it's really tacky. I did it for a while because I was just really sensitive. It's one of those things that, to me, I know a lot of people thought it was silly, but like, it helped me, right? It helped me feel better. It helped me feel better after the situations. I didn't feel so drained or so sensitive and overstimulated too. So thinking about your positioning as well. So if you're at a restaurant, try to sit like at a quieter end of the table or a quieter end of the restaurant if that's possible. Maybe choose a seat with your back to the wall so you're not taking in so much visually, right? And at these bigger events, it's okay to like hang out near the edges, right? Like for me, I would always like stand or sit next to one of the back doors so that I could just kind of sneak out for a few minutes if I needed a break and just some fresh air and some just to breathe, right? Some quiet, right? Somewhere where there's a little more airflow, less distractions. I didn't have to be in the middle of everything and trying to absorb everyone else's energy and emotions and body language and stuff. Those breaks are really going to benefit you, right? So stepping outside, finding a quiet room, just going to the restroom and excusing yourself, all of these are like little resets for your nervous system. And I think it's important to remind yourself it's not rude, right? It's not rude to step aside. It's not rude to excuse yourself. You're regulating yourself. You're taking care of yourself. And that's very important. And also, if you get to choose the setting, choose something that supports you, right? For me, like one of my biggest struggles was the temperature regulation with pots. So like I always had to make sure that I was somewhere where I could stay cool, somewhere that had really good AC, or something that I could put on my body that was going to regulate my temperature a bit better. Maybe that's going to a park picnic instead of a really noisy bar if you're really sensitive to maybe the lights at night, or you're really sensitive to all of the noise. Maybe it's inviting just one or two friends over for tea instead of going to a packed birthday party for dinner, right? Not all social time has to be the same. It's not all created equal, and the smaller, quieter ones might leave you feeling more recharged, and that can help you rebuild that social battery, and like we were talking about earlier, building your strength, capacity, and resilience even more, so that next time you do it, you can handle even more. Now, some little signals of safety to remind your body that you're okay are also really important, right? So maybe that's drinking cold water, because that cold water stimulates that vagus nerve. Maybe it's like those little worry stones, right? Keeping a smooth stone that you can rub in your pocket. Or maybe you have something else that you just keep in your hand and kind of fidget with to keep you grounded, right? You can keep it in your pocket. No one has to see it, right? For me, it was always my keys or my phone. Maybe you have, for me, I really like sandalwood. So keeping sandalwood on my wrist and kind of just casually smelling it if I felt really stressed out. You can do lavender or peppermint or orange, something really grounding and relaxing. All of those can kind of help bring you back to reality if you're feeling overstimulated in those moments. And the next strategy we have, I think, is one of the most healing, and there's a lot of work and self-reflection that goes into this one. But that is authenticity and unmasking. So when you're pretending to be okay the entire time that you're socializing, your nervous system is doing double duty. Your body is working overtime. But when you start to show up as more of your true self and you're really authentic, especially around people who you feel are safe and trustworthy, you reduce that energy drain on your social battery, right? You're taking a lot of pressure off. You start to create that real connection. You're not having to perform, and you just feel like yourself and you feel safe and comfortable, and your energy starts to come back, right? So let's talk about what that actually looks like. Firstly, choose supportive company when you can. So spend time with people who get it, right? Our community is a great space to do that. We have people who have been chronically ill. We have people who've been bedridden. We have people who are dealing with social anxiety or burnout and fatigue. Being around those types of people, we're okay if you're quiet, right? We're okay if you don't feel well. We're not going to push you to do something you're not comfortable with. We understand you need rest. And we also understand that's not a weakness. So when you find these kind of people, just practice saying something honest and open to them, right? Maybe, hey, I've had a long day. I might be a little low energy tonight. Or, hey, I've had a long day. I don't feel like turning my mic on, right? I just need a quick breather from the noise. I'll be back in a few minutes. It's not a big deal, right? We're not going to second guess it or stress about it. We'll let you, do your own thing for a little bit and recharge for a few minutes. And chances are that if you're doing this around people who truly care about you, they will respond with kindness. They will respond with support, and you won't have to work so hard to feel or pretend to be okay. And you can also eventually, once you feel comfortable with this, start working into progressive unmasking, right? Start small. Wear what feels comfortable, not what you think you should wear. If you feel like wearing makeup's too much or it's uncomfortable, don't wear it. Just don't wear it for that day. I promise you, more people, they might care for a fraction of a moment, and then they're not going to care anymore, if they care at all, right? Our community, we don't care. We're there to support each other, right? If someone asks how you're doing, you don't have to default to fine. I know a lot of us do. It's not even that we're trying to lie about it. It's just we said it so much, we've masked so much that it becomes a habit, and it's instinctual and it's instantaneous, and it flies out of our mouth at the first chance it gets, right? So try saying something a bit more honest and real and say, hey, yeah, I'm good, but I'm a little tired, but I'm happy I came. Simple, right? Just slow and steady. You don't have to unleash everything all at once. Just these little shifts will slowly start to signal to your nervous system, it's okay for me to be here. It's safe for me to be here. It's safe for me to show up as myself. Let's also mention something that is very important. On my channel, I do talk about a lot of breathing exercises and somatic exercises and things like that, but there is no amount of deep breathing that can fix an unsafe social situation. So if you are regularly spending time with people who are draining you, who are ignoring your boundaries, people who feel like you can't make you feel like you can't relax, take a step back. Just take a step back. Distance yourself. Get to a place where you feel safe, you feel comfortable, and then if you want to later down the road, when your battery's a bit more recharged, you can kind of dip your toes in the water a little bit. Maybe in a really controlled, quick interaction where you know you don't have to be there for very long, right? Not every relationship in your life is meant to stay there long term. That's something else that's very important to remember. And protecting your energy around those people isn't rude, it's wise. You're taking care of yourself. And when you take care of yourself like that, your nervous system will absolutely thank you. Last but not least, give yourself permission to be imperfect. You don't have to be the most bubbly, you don't have to be the smartest, you don't have to be the most talkative, the most polished version in the room, or version of yourself in order to be loved or accepted, right? Maybe you do leave early. Maybe you're a little quieter that day. Maybe you cry afterwards. And that's okay, right? When you let go of that pressure to perform, beautiful things start to happen and your nervous system starts to regulate, your body starts to soften. Real connection becomes possible. Let's wrap up these 5 strategies with something else that often gets overlooked. How you recover after you actually get out there. How you recover after you're socializing. So that post-social care is just as important, if not more, than what you do before an event. So think of it like a workout. You wouldn't go for a long run and then just drop to the floor without stretching or without hydrating. I don't know, maybe some of you do, but it's going to leave your muscles very upset, very tense, and angry at you, right? Your nervous system needs a cool down too. So try to schedule that downtime right after a big event. So if you know you're going to be at a party all day, or if you're going to be at maybe a baby shower on Sunday afternoon, don't book up Sunday night. Take that evening to relax to yourself. If you know that maybe you're a bit more sensitive, take off the next day if you can, or at least Monday morning. You know, leave yourself some breathing room so that you can recover, so that you can rest, so that your nervous system has some time to regulate and repair. And that little recovery window gives your body permission to relax, right? You feel less anxious during the event if you know that there's rest waiting on the other side. How stressed are you going to be if you go to a baby shower Sunday afternoon or Sunday at lunch, and then you know you have a dinner to go to that afternoon on a different side of town, or heck, even maybe in another town over? You're going to be stressed and overthinking the whole time you're at the baby shower, right? You're burning up a lot of energy, right? A lot of stress hormones. Okay, next you can do something that is going to signal safety to your body. So maybe that is changing into cozy clothes when you get home, or taking a hot bath, or even taking a nap is what I usually did when I was recovering. Maybe it's making a hot cup of some chamomile tea. I'm a big fan of chamomile. So maybe it's just a warm shower, right? Whatever makes you feel calm, whatever makes you feel relaxed and you recharge is what's important and what you need to focus on. You are trying to refill your cup, trying to recharge your battery in this post-social recovery phase. We also have vagus nerve resets, which you will find a lot of that on my channel as well. So if you've been in social alert mode, your body's probably buzzing after the event's over, maybe even physically vibrating, right? That's a symptom that I would have a lot, is my whole body from the inside out felt like it was just vibrating. So try things that are going to bring your nervous system back into that calm state. So how can we stimulate the vagus nerve? You can do body scan meditations, humming. My favorite is dunking my face into a bowl of ice and holding my breath as long as I can. It sounds miserable, but it works wonders for resetting that vagus nerve. Deep belly breathing, right? We were talking about physiological sighs. Those are another favorite of mine. All of these are gentle ways to stimulate that vagus nerve and stimulate that rest, digest, and heal part of your nervous system, which helps you recharge even faster. So let's talk about what happens in your mind. Now, I know for me and a lot of my clients, it is very common to replay conversations after an event, right? Like when I was in my recovery, holy moly. And even before, like the amount of conversations that I would replay after an event, and even like for days after the event was over, insane. Wondering if I said something wrong, saying to myself, oh, I should have told them this. I should have said that. Did I ask them the wrong question? Did I upset them? That's anxiety, right? All of those spiraling thoughts. So instead of spiraling, try shifting into a reflective mode, right? I started asking myself, well, what felt good about that? What did I enjoy when I went out to that dinner? What was challenging for me, right? Maybe I had a symptom come up. Maybe I started having palpitations, but I dealt with it. I stepped outside for a few minutes, sat down, got some fresh air, some cool air. That was a challenge for me at the time, but I overcame it. Maybe I would ask myself, well, hey, what do I want to do differently next time? Maybe I want to make sure I'm better hydrated, or maybe I want to make sure that I carry salt with me in case I get too hot and don't have enough electrolytes and get dehydrated. So just, you can, for me, I never really journaled these things. I do have my clients journal them if that's something that they do and makes them feel comfortable. But if you want, just answer those questions out loud, right? When you finish in a social event, like come home, rest for a little while, and then shift into that reflective mode, just answer those 3 questions. It's quick, easy. It's good for you. So, if you are living with things like chronic fatigue or POTS or something similar, your recovery might even need to be more intentional, right? My recovery journey towards the end was very different, very different. And the reins were a lot looser than they were in the very beginning when I was just trying to get out of being bedridden. So, for example, that could mean drinking more fluids, drinking more salt, right? For me, the more I recovered, the less salt I had to eat, the less water I had to drink. My body was regulating hormones better, so I wasn't excreting all of this excess fluid and excess electrolytes. It could mean eating a higher protein meal or a higher carb meal or a higher fat meal, whatever your body needs at that moment, right? And again, this depends on where you're at in your recovery journey. I advise against going full bed rest mode if possible, right? So for me, what would happen is I would say I went to a lunch for a couple of hours and I would immediately come home and take like a 2 or 3 hour nap, right? Like in the beginning, that's what I would do. And then I would wake up from that. I would have the rest of the day to myself. I would focus on eating good food, hydrating, and resting, and maybe doing some very light movement. Like, okay, I'm going to wash some dishes or maybe some laundry. And that was the end of my day, right? I still rested, but I didn't go back to full bed rest, right? That helps your circulation. That helps your body get nutrients to where it needs to go, and it keeps you from slowly sneaking back into that bedridden phase or that burnout, right? We want to balance rest, but we don't want to completely shut down every time we try something new, every time we push a little bit, every time we go to some type of social event. We want to support our body, right? Like, it just did something hard, right? Like after a workout, eat something healthy, eat something high protein with good electrolytes or good salt. Your body's going to thank you for it because a lot of that gets depleted when you work out, right? Honor your needs without guilt. If you are tired after being social, if you are tired after going out, just give yourself some grace. I think that was one of the hardest parts, aside from learning to say no. Giving myself grace was a very difficult one. Not feeling guilty for being tired all the time. Not feeling guilty for not being able to do the things I used to be able to do. Right? So instead of saying, I shouldn't be this tired, I started saying, that was a lot. I showed up the best I could. I did the best that I could. Now I get to rest. This is my time to relax. All right? That self-compassion, a lot of us treat like a luxury. And it's really an essential part of our healing journeys, our recovery journeys. Compassion is essential. It is necessary for you to move forward. If you try to recover from things like anxiety and burnout and long COVID and POTS and all of these things, you can go to the doctors all you want. You can try to recover all you want. But if you don't get to the root cause of it, and you don't deal with a lot of the thought processes and the negative thought spirals that often accompany it, I can almost guarantee, because I've seen this in myself in the past, and I've also seen this in clients, I can almost guarantee that you're going to relapse. And I don't say that to scare anyone. I say that to be honest and upfront. We have to learn how to nurture our bodies and nurture our minds in order for it to truly recover. All right, so before we close, I do want to remind you of something that is so important. You are not alone. You're not alone. And I, throughout a lot of my healing journey, felt like I was alone because I felt like no one understood what I was going through, because in all honesty, they didn't. I couldn't even explain it to people. I couldn't explain what I was going through. And there's unfortunately so many women that I know of, or that I have helped coach, who feel exactly the way that I did and exactly the way that you probably do if you're still watching this, right? Exhausted by things that seem easy for other people. Worn out by constant interactions. Craving that connection, but feeling overwhelmed by how much it takes out of you, right? You're empathetic. You're thoughtful. You care about what other people think. You care about what other people feel. You're very observant. And your system takes on a lot of information. And with that awareness that we were talking about, that self-awareness and that compassion and support, you can absolutely expand your capacity over time. My doctors told me I wasn't going to be able to fix the POTS. They told me I wasn't going to be able to fix the fatigue or the long COVID. The long COVID, well, maybe it'll go away. We don't really know. We don't really know what to do about it, right? You can absolutely expand your capacity over time. I will say it 1,000 times because I've seen it done. You can widen that window of tolerance so that your social interactions don't feel so intense. And even if you never really loved big crowds, or you didn't like loud noises or loud rooms, that's okay, right? There's so many ways to connect with people that don't leave you drained. They don't have to be super overstimulating like that. And the most important thing is to listen to your body, right? Give it the care that it needs. Give it the care that it deserves. Know that it's possible to feel safe. It's possible to feel energized and more you in social spaces. So I want to thank you again for being here with me today and for sticking to the end. And if today's session resonated with you and you're craving more support, we are completely here to walk with you on that path for the next 24 hours. We do this every week with a different offering. But for the next 24 hours, our nervous system coaching calls are going to be on a sale for you guys. We do offer coaching calls that have personalized plans. Now, this is not a doctor-patient relationship. This is a coaching relationship, so it's different than seeing me in like our virtual clinic setting, right? So with the nervous system regulation, this is geared for burnout recovery, right? Regulating your nervous system, working on the POTS, working on the chronic fatigue, working on that long COVID, building your tolerance, right? So if you're just starting out or you want a deeper form of healing, you don't have to figure it out all on your own. We are more than happy to help you.